So I'm Lieutenant Commander Desmond Walker. Been in the Navy 22 years. I enlisted back in 1996 as an electronics technician. I also earned my NECs to be air traffic control radar technician. Then during my first sea tour, I was selected for the Seaman to Admiral 21 program, and that afforded me the opportunity to go to Norfolk State University and the ROTC unit there to get my bachelor's degree and commissioned as an officer. During that time is where I selected the surface nuclear option. Then as a surface nuke, I began my career path. Like every other SWO, I've been on 2 ships for my division officer tours, 2 ships for my department head tours, and now I'm in my post department head window. So this current shore duty has consisted of me being on the OPNAV staff. It began with me in N95, expeditionary warfare, where I had the portfolio for the requirements and resourcing of our amphibious ships. And then I transitioned to the CNO's personal staff, N00Z. It's his strategic action group, where I'm one of the special assistants there. And then one of my primary duties is to participate in his exchange officer program with the Commandant of the Marine Corps, where a lieutenant colonel and we sit in the different offices, in the opposite services office, working on topics of naval integration on behalf of both service chiefs. I'm currently, in my career path, I'm currently screened for Commander Command. I'm awaiting the 05 results, and then I look to slate for Commander Command in October, where I get to pick my ship. So the first major crossroad I reached in where I had to decide on what I wanted to do for my career was Navy Nuclear Power Training Command. Nuclear power is probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. When people ask me how hard is it, I usually compare it to the Navy SEAL program. The physicality that's involved with those guys qualifying to become a SEAL, nuclear power is probably the academic version of that. So the events that led up to that crossroad was definitely the training pipeline that you have to go through. It's roughly 26 weeks of graduate level education centered around learning how a reactor operates. So it's electrical engineering, heat transfer, thermodynamics, reactor dynamics, core characteristics, materials, all taught at a graduate level. And I just knew I had to finish that training, specifically because as African American. At first I didn't even know how many other African Americans had been through this training before, how many were coming after me, except for the ones that were in our class the same time that I was there. But I worked hard every day, 35 hours a week extra studying, the last 2 weeks, 40 hours a week, and all of that just to still fail the class and fail the final exam. But I will tell you that the school had a policy, an existing policy where if you failed, you failed the final exam, you had the option of retaking the written exam or doing an oral acting review board. I opted for the oral board with the staff and the school's commanding officer. And in that board, I was able to display a level of knowledge, answer the questions with technical relevance and competency that gave the CO confidence in my ability to continue in the training. And I felt that it was important that I was able to accomplish that. Factors that I had to consider in making a decision to stay on track. I wouldn't necessarily say I had factors to consider, but I did have motivations to stay. or to really be successful as a naval officer, as a surface nuclear officer. Growing up in the Mississippi Delta in the Deep South, that environment does not in of itself encourage young people to want to try to do better, to think beyond their current circumstances, beyond what they can see. But I was fortunate enough to have people around me, have adults around me that saw something in me that encouraged me to look beyond, try to imagine what that would be like, to look beyond the current situation, to know that there are things that are beyond the state of Mississippi. And I had counselors that recommended me for things like to attend the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science. And I will tell you that going to that school really changed my outlook on life. It was the first real exposure of life, what life could really be like. And that's where I first learned about the Navy as well. And when I joined the Navy, you know, mostly to get out of Mississippi, but being in the Navy, then being selected to be an officer in the ROTC, it wasn't like I would thought, what I thought it was going to be, and it was really exposure to a new level of new level of adversity. I was with a group of midshipmen, and we were traveling to a drill competition within the ROTC, and we were talking about our different commissioning paths. And when I said I was through the State 21 program, one of the other midshipmen basically said, "Oh, you're only selected for that because you're black." And so, that was in 2005, 2003, and you know, even now in 2019, to me, that still motivates me, still reminds me of how much more I have to do, how much harder I have to work, because like I said, now in 2019, there are midshipmen that have that same story. My biggest professional obstacle since I've chosen to stay in the Navy was probably my second department head tour. This would have been my nuclear department head tour as a principal assistant. And that ship, the culture there was very challenging. It was very hard to motivate sailors, because it was just, everything just seemed to just be so hard to do. A lot of negativity, a lot of people that didn't believe in what the ship's mission was. Not to say that the ship in and of itself was good or bad. I don't think I can make that call, but I just know in my sphere of influence, a lot of sailors were just, the morale was just very low. And so coming from my previous ship, where we had a lot of successes, a lot of great teamwork, a lot of high morale, that was a different scenario that I didn't think I was prepared for. And so what I didn't realize is how much of me it was going to take to try to make things better for my sailors and my team. So I worked very closely with my chief, and we just did what we controlled the things that we could control. And in that, after about a year, it seemed like we still wasn't going to make it. And I had seriously considered retiring, especially as a prior enlisted sailor. And I was like, I don't need this. But then something magical happened. The sailors finally bought into what we were trying to do. They bought into the empowerment. They bought into the responsibility, the accountability that was placed on them when they saw that their senior leadership was fighting for them. And when I say fighting for them, it's not about making sure that they go home early. It was having a plan. It was communicating. It was giving them options so that if they needed time off for a family situation, they could do it because we had a plan. we had options, we had backups. And so that reinforced what we were saying, which then convinced them that, hey, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe we are doing good things. And we went from sailors finding ways to get out of the Navy to a year later, sailors wanting to re-enlist. How do I balance work and life? I will tell you that has evolved over the years because my personal circumstances have changed. When I first joined the Navy, it was just me. But now, 22 years later, married 21 years, 3 children, 1 is in college, 2 are almost teenagers. And over the last 22 years, with about 18 PCS moves, high school graduation, deployments, it was going after communication. It was sharing what I know about my career at that time with my spouse, with my children. Predicting as much as I can about what the options would look like, so that the family could factor those in. Every PCS move is a family decision. And the better the military member communicates that real situation to the family, and the more time that the family has to process that and to take it in, internalize it, and weigh the pros and cons for themselves, the more susceptible I think the family is to the PCS move. We ask sailors every day to think, about the country and their service to the country and to make sacrifices. But it does not mean that we don't take the opportunity to encourage them to learn as much as they can, so that the PCS that they know is gonna come, to prepare for that as much as they can. And so like I said, it's evolved over the years, but I would say the one constant in that balance has been communication. Finally, I'll close with this message to anyone that's thinking about or considering joining the National Naval Officers Association. Former naval officer and former President John F. Kennedy famously said, "Don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." And I say take out country and put NNOA. NNOA is a great venue to connect, but far too many times we want the organization to be there and to do something for me. Well, I say come and see what you can do for NNOA, how you can help NNOA be what it can be.